Welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, where we connect the wisdom and experience of ministry leaders to the realities of ministry in the trenches. We journey with ministry leaders through all the hidden aspects that help us to become fruitful ministers. Here at the Catholic Leadership Network podcast, we discuss the stuff that no one told you about Catholic ministry and strive to help ministry leaders succeed from the beginning. Our hosts are Christy Cavanis, the Director for Missionary Discipleship for the Diocese of Cleveland, and Sarah Jarzembowski, the Director for Marriage and Family Life at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish in Crofton, Maryland. Please show your support for our efforts by clicking like and subscribe and commenting below. And now here are Sarah and Christy. And we like to have fun on this podcast, so we're going to have a little bit of fun.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Catholic Leadership Network podcast. Christy and I are here today with Donna Humphrey. Donna is a lay associate of the Sisters of Humility of Mary. She's been a lay associate for 34 years. She's from Elyria, Ohio. Lived in Lorain County with her husband, Patrick. She has 3 grown children, 4 grandchildren. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful family.
It is.
CPA for 40 years, private practice for 25 of those, co-founder of Blessing House, a children's crisis care center in 2005 that provides residential care for children whose families are experiencing an emergency. Currently, Finance and Development Director at a Blessing House, and involved in various ministries at the parish, Director for the Contemporary Choir at St. Jude for 35 years. So, Donna, you have done quite a bit of the Lord's work in very many areas. Is there anything that I missed out of there that you want to make sure we heard about there?
That's the highlight.
That's the highlight. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm so glad to meet you. And I'm so glad. Thank you, Christy, for introducing us. This is so exciting.
It's glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I love opportunities to talk about some of the things that are out there that folks can do. And this is actually our topic today, one of the best kept secrets in our Catholic faith, as far as I'm concerned. So this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I want to also add, because I didn't hear it in there, Donna is also contributing member of the Ohio PA Associate and Leadership Group. They're called OPAL, OPAL. So if we say that, guys, that's what we're talking about. And she's also a member of LAUD, LAUDD. That's the Lay Associates Uniting in Diversity and Discernment, which is a national organization for those who are involved in lay and associate religious communities. So can we just start right there, Donna? I didn't put this on the official list of questions, but can you tell us what lay associate membership is?
Lay associate membership is a connection of lay individuals, both men and women, to religious consecrated communities that have chosen to make a commitment to live out the charism of that particular community. So they do it through prayer, through ministry, through engagement, through relationships. But what we do is we connect with a particular religious group, and we live the values that they have adopted, their mission statements that back up the charisms of their particular community.
Oh, that's really cool. So how did you first get involved in lay associate membership?
Well, it actually was through my husband, Pat, who worked at St. Joseph Hospital, which is one of the hospitals that was at that time operated by the Sisters of Humility of Mary. And I believe at the time he was in administration there. There were 15 or so sisters from the community that worked in various capacities. And I became close with 2 of the sisters there, Sister Ann Victory and Sister Mary Ann Galanka. We just really became good friends. And then I think the associate program started in 1986, I believe. And so in 1989, when we were invited or suggested that we become associates, it just really sounded like a great idea, a different way to live our faith. through other opportunities besides our parish. And we both became associates at that time even though I had school-age children at home, I worked and all the other things, but it just was that one piece that was missing that I didn't know a lot about, but wanted to try.
Oh, that's really cool. So then how did that in turn lead to your Opal and Laud connections?
So both Opal and Lott are fairly recent engagements and involvement. And I did go to an Opal workshop back in 2017, but it was just last fall that they needed somebody to help with their music ministry. So they invited me to come to their fall workshop. And Sister Carol Zinn, the executive director of LCWR, was the presenter. And she really actually just blew me away because her whole presentation focused on transformation. And it was to really address, I think, the position that many of our religious communities are in today. And she talked a lot about transformation. And she kept on doing the visual that we keep on looking behind us and try to take things that we've done in the past and how to do them more or better, rather than looking ahead and say, how can we do things differently? And I think that affected a lot of the people there. We had representatives from, I believe, 10 different associate communities in the Ohio, Pennsylvania area. And so that was my start with Opal, because it really engaged me in a way that said, we have to find a different way to do this. We have to find a way to look at things and do things differently. So then with Loud, that particular group kind of came out of Opal. Opal was focused on associate leadership and helping the leaders in the different communities do more, share with the other, and network for their own groups. But Loud said, what's a way that we can talk to each other and communicate individually? And so we started having a series of virtual conversations where we talked about different topics. And the Synod has become our main focus right now, because we really believe in this whole idea of co-responsibility and lay ministry, that it's going to be leaders from groups like ours that need to step up and say, this is what the Pope wants us to do. So I've kind of continued with both of these groups to find ways to say, here's what associate membership is, and find ways that we can open up this circle to more people.
Yeah, because I think that it's even just hearing your story so far, it helps for people to realize that there's another expression of your Catholicism that isn't necessarily indirect parish ministry, so to speak. So what I'd love to know is you spoke to, it was an excellent expression for you to be part of the charisms of the Sisters of Humility of Mary. Can you say more about that? Like, what was the growth for you that you noticed that allowed you really the freedom that you hadn't found before?
You know, when I think back again, I was mid-30s when I first started. I was raising kids. Even though I had been raised in, a Catholic formation, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, strong family background, there was still so much in lived experiences that I had not had. So being with this community outside of the parish boundaries, all at once I had this freedom of authenticity, where you didn't have to meet up to somebody else's expectations or somebody else's structure. And the requirements aren't, you need to do this, 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 and this is your time frame. There's a lot of freedom in your engagement, your participation. So you learn I learned how to pray there. I mean, you can learn all these things in school, in parish groups, but to actually be with others that really know different methods of prayer, that can do that with you, that can demonstrate that with you, and not have to say, well, because somebody else expects this of me, this is what I have to do. That there's an authenticity that's saying, I'm not perfect. I don't have to be perfect. I can learn from others. I can be who I am, and I'm going to be totally accepted for who I am. And that was one of the greatest gifts that I found, that, you know, it didn't matter that I missed this or I missed that, or maybe I didn't get there. You know, they were always glad to see me. I lived 2 hours away, and they were always glad to see me when I was able to come, and totally welcoming and accepting.
Wow. Sarah, do you want to?
I just love that freedom of authenticity. I totally wrote that down, you know.
Me too.
It's like a double-edged sword that kind of hit me there. Like, I'm so glad that you found that, but also like, oof, you weren't able to find that in your parish. Like, oof, our parishes aren't a place where people feel that they can be their authentic selves, that there isn't a freedom to be imperfect, to miss if something comes up, you know, that there's this judgment in our parishes. So like that's what was going through my mind, that, like, how do we what is the grounding of that, like, how do we create that space of allowing people to be their authentic selves, you know, as leaders within our various ministries? How can we cultivate that freedom of authenticity? How do we cultivate that?
I think they're part of the problem is just the structure. When you look at parish and diocesan operations, if you want to call it that, you know, worship and leadership and administration is structured, and this is the way that it is. And there are limitations. There are gender limitations. At times there are class and there are racial biases that are implicit in some of the ways that they operate. And so if you're a woman and you want to come in and do something that your parish administrator or pastor just doesn't see fits within their particular structure, then you're limited. And so to be able to go to a place and say, well, this is what I believe God is calling me to do, and to be able to have those open discussions, I think that the structure itself kind of restricts that. So in a way, I see that our diocesan and parish institutions are based on faith formation and maintaining the integrity and institution of the church. But I look at a lot of the congregations and the associate programs as focusing on people, because they don't have those same restrictions. The other thing is that I've also found through the congregations, it's global. You know, you're not restricted to parish boundaries. And I think, Christy, I'm sure you found this out in working in missionary discipleship. People want to be part of something bigger. And if you don't have that movement within your parish to go beyond parish boundaries, then you can be constricted and limited. So the one thing I found that's been especially helpful in the lay communities is that they're global. We look at issues of, you know, human trafficking, immigration, peace and justice, ecology, and those are not often, you know, in the parish. So I think you have to have both, and it's kind of hard to duplicate one or the other.
Wow.
I know. I was going to just say,
Wow.
I mean, I think that's pretty straight up, because the way that parishes and diocesan structures, they're very hierarchical. And so, but the point, Donna, like, cuts a little, and I feel like it's exactly what Pope Francis is saying, is that we work hard in church structure to preserve the structure. And that is the difference with religious groups, is that they see themselves as formed and created by the Holy Spirit. And so when their work is done, we see it's happening, where religious orders are dissolving, or I don't know what the word properly is when they say, we're not taking any more novitiates, we're not adding any more to this group, because this work has kind of run its course, and the body of Christ is moving in a different direction. And we understand that they allow themselves to be pruned, and we don't do that well within the church structure, I don't think.
Well, and yes and no. I mean, I think one of the things as Sister Carol Zinn spoke a lot about was the numbers. You know, everybody seems to focus on numbers, and no matter what ministry you're in. But I think the recognition is that the numbers and the formation of the sisters may be going down, but the charisms are still there. And there is, in the United States, there's a group called the Leadership Collaborative, which in the past has really been working with just the sisters groups. They've become the legacy organization for NACAR, which was the national organization that coordinated the associate programs. And what they're trying to do with the Leadership Collaborative is say, is there a different way, you know, to be charism carriers? And, you know, whether or not the sisters communities continue in the form that they have, is there a way that we can continue those charisms? And again, I go back to the Synod that says it's up to the lay people. You know, we can have those same charisms as a focal point in our own lives by living out the values in the workplace. And we may not do it in the same way in community, but Christy, missionary discipleship, that's what people want to do. Go out into the workplace and live those same values.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. Sarah, I felt like you had something.
Yeah, what do you think the biggest roadblock to that is?
The biggest roadblock to what?
To living out that missionary discipleship, to living it in the real world.
You know, I don't think the only roadblocks is feeling empowered to do that. I think that, you know, we become so accustomed to routines and to habits that we don't sometimes think of how in the real world, in conversations with friends, family, coworkers, and being married to a deacon who has been one of those individuals that has taken Christ into the workplace, you know, that has just been a part of my whole life. But I think we were afraid to talk religion in the community. We're afraid to speak up about racism. We're afraid to talk about things that are countercultural. And so it's that sense of empowerment that we need, again, that we can find strength in when we are a part of a community of people that have like values and also the same charism.
So do you think it's understanding like I'm sorry, I was going to say, do you think it's understanding a personal apostolate and their baptismal call, or is there also something to the fact that what I'm seeing from community life is that you have a community? Literally, when you go out and try to live out your discipleship in the world, you have a place where you can come back and have people cheer you on, pray with and over you. You know what I mean? Is it both and, Donna? What do you think?
That's exactly what it is, because, you know, even when I talk about what it was like when I started Blessing House, I go back to being a part of this community where you learn in the history. You know, back in the 1800s, there was a nun and 10 of her fellow sisters and 4 orphans that got on a boat and came through the call of a bishop to start a community in it was in Villa Maria, Pennsylvania. And my goodness, the stories I hear about what they went through to convert this marshland into the beautiful place that it is now. And you just realize, because our charism is humility, and we focus on that fiat of yes. And when you look at how that yes was given so many years ago, that has become the basis of what we do in ministry, then it's like, all right, if God says do this, you got to do it. And to be able to go to your community and say, look, it was done. It can be done. It's not going to be easy, but this is what God wants you to do. And so in your humility of saying yes, we're going to be here and we're going to support you. And our community was wonderful, and even helping me get started in that ministry.
Nice. Sarah,
So what's something that as a parish worker, as a diocesan, like what can we do to support lay apostolates, lay associate memberships, religious orders in the work that we do? How can we support these types of organizations?
I believe the most important thing is to helping us expose others to the opportunities, because we've just completed the strategic plan in the Sisters of Humility Mary associate program, and the subcommittee I'm on is welcoming others or introducing others to our community. And as I'm starting to talk to more and more people, what's an associate, and even those that have been connected to the community in some way are just not aware that this program is here. So in the Sisters of Humility Mary were started at Magnificat High School. Christy, I'm sure you're probably aware of them. Sister Helen Jean is still a legacy there, and I've talked to people that have gone through Magnificat, and again, they're not aware that there is a way that they can continue even after graduating there. All that they learned and became a part of them just in their formation at that school. So I think that's one of the things, is being able to say, even though you're involved in your parish, there are these other opportunities. The other thing that I think we have done as associates is we've been we've been enclosed in our own little cocoons. And I think one of the things that I would like to see and have been a little more involved in is, both through Opal and Loud, is to say, how can we work together as different associate communities to present a bigger picture? Because I think if you talk to the individual communities, they'll say, I became an associate because I knew so-and-so, or I went to school with the sisters, or I worked with this group of sisters. And so it was through a personal relationship that they maybe became connected. But I think there's a whole group of people out there, especially young people, who want to do more and find out more and grow spiritually and become involved in big picture projects, that if they knew about this way of being Catholic, I think that they would become really interested and involved. So I think one of the things I would love to do is to say, how can we take that parish work and lay associate work and bring them together and say, it doesn't have to be either or, but how can we do it as both? And there's there's some history in terms of conflict or tension between the church hierarchical community and lay associate or in religious communities. You can go back to just a few years ago when there was a Vatican visitation to LCWR that created a lot of hard feelings. And I think we have to find a way to overcome that and say, there's no threat to either organization as long as we figure out how to work together. Let's not focus on doctrine at this point, but let's focus on people, because the people of God and our baptismal call is what we really need to bring into the picture right now.
Yeah, there's those conversations, those one-on-one relationships, those interactions really seem to be key. And it's overcoming that insecurities, those what ifs, those difficulties that the mind, and where the adversary plays, the adversary likes to play in our minds and in our thoughts, and so kind of tends to keep us quiet at times. And so what I'm hearing here is really finding a support system to help keep us vocal and sharing. And so as a parish leader, one of the things that I'm hearing is offering opportunities for people who are a part of a lay membership, a lay association, the opportunity to speak and to share and to offer their witness and their stories about
Yes.
how the Lord is working in their lives through this lay membership and this lay association.
You know, I think the other thing that we were talking about earlier, how you're mentoring new ministers in diocesan or parish roles. Sometimes I think they can get frustrated because they're used to working in structure or parish boundaries or, you know, certain limitations to say, look at how you can grow personally in your spiritual life. And some of them are going to find it where they're at, but maybe they're not. And so to be able to, I think to be able to minister well, you have to have that grounding yourself. At least that's what I found for me. And so if you don't have that, you know, your effectiveness is going to be, you know, not nearly as good. So even for those who are in ministry, look at this as an opportunity. If you feel that you're just not where you want to be in your relationship with Christ.
Yeah, I was going to just say too, to your point, Sarah, of what your role is in a parish leadership with regard to the lay associate membership. I feel as a diocesan person, my job is to make sure that people know that this is like that these groups exist. It is a possibility, because you're 100% right, Donna. Like, people are seeking how to be missionary disciples and they're not sure where to go with that, especially if and I'm not going to get specific, but I'll just say, like, within the confines of their parish boundaries and those structures, they can't find expression for that, because whether it's you know, the pastor or even the lay leadership within that parish, or sometimes I think it's also just the community in which you find yourself, because God calls us to work that isn't always right in our own backyard. So sometimes it's more broad than that. So but knowing that there's a place that folks can go, I think, is extremely helpful. So I feel like that's also part of my job, is make sure people know that even exists. So, but I hate, this is terrible, because I have like a zillion more questions to ask you, Donna, but we're actually closing on the time. So we have to ask, of course, the famous question that's part of this podcast, or infamous, I'm not sure, is, what's something that you wish you knew about lay associate membership from the very beginning, or ministry in general, or from the very beginning? What do you wish you knew?
So one of the things that I've always felt is important, and I've learned over time, I'm speaking from looking back now, is you have to find a way to combine heart and head. So the phrase that I've come up with is, we need to learn from the past, plan for the future, but live in the moment. And I think sometimes what we do is we focus too much on we need to focus on the past to learn from the past. We've got tradition, history, things that can teach us a lot. So I think we need to be aware of the past. And I think we also need to plan for the future. I mean, hopefully we're doing it in prayer, looking for God's guidance as to what that future is going to be. But if we do only that, you know, especially in our ministry, then we're all in our head. But if we can learn to live in the moment and appreciate beauty and joy and appreciate change, embrace the difficult parts of what we do, because those are the things that help us grow. So if we live in the moment and increase our awareness, then that's going to bring us into the heart. And I think in everything that we do, we have to have head and heart. And one other thing, especially in ministry, I think we have a tendency to live either up or down to other people's expectations. And I think that's very limiting. So if we have a pastor or somebody, a leader that comes to us and say, I want you to have 5 different sessions for Advent and put this together, and you put together your 5 different sessions and everything goes great, and you're going to pat yourself on the back and say, okay, I'm done. But are you really listening to what God wants you to do? And is there more that comes out of there? Is there something you become aware of that you feel this nudge? And I keep on talking about this nudge, you know, that comes from God, like, okay, you're not done. There's more to this. You know, you think you have a purpose in life, but I have purposes for you, and you still got more to go. On the other hand, don't worry about living up to others' expectations, because I think the church and a lot of parishes focus too much on numbers. You know, how many people attended to this and how many people did this, and it's important to engage as many people as possible, but we don't want to get frustrated because it's God and not us. It's our job to bring the loaves and the fish to the table, and it's up to God to work the miracles. So don't get frustrated by trying to live up to others' expectations when you're doing the best you can.
Mm-hmm. Golly, you convicted me today.
Sorry.
This was
good. I needed to hear it.
This is really good. Yeah. Yeah. This summer at World Youth Day, Pope Francis said the only time we should be looking down at somebody is when we are helping them up.
Yeah.
Boom.
So it's a really good reminder there. It's a really good reminder. You know, the numbers thing always trips me up, you know, and I fairly recently had a conversation with somebody that said, you know, the only reason we should be looking at numbers is to know when we need to go after the one. We need to know the one is missing. Right. And so the only reason we need to know what those numbers are is to know when the one is missing. And we need to go after that one. So I think that the numbers are only good when we're using them to connect with a greater story, with a wider story, a broader context. So wow, these are such great. I was taking all sorts of notes, so sorry if my video was shaky here, because I was writing vigorously on the table here, and my camera was shaking a little bit there. Donna, I am so blessed today to have met you, and I look forward to our continued friendship growing, and our professional relationship growing. This has just been really fantastic. I've learned a great deal from you, and just ideas sparking of all of the lay apostolates that I'm connected with, and lay associations that I'm connected with, and how I might be able to invite them to participate in our parish, and get them connected with some of our parishioners. So I think I really appreciate the conversation to start that inspiration, and start the Holy Spirit moving in this way. So thank you so much. And I hope that the Spirit is moving in others as well. And I just pray that blessing is going out into the ether as well. So thank you for joining us.
And one other thing that I do want to mention, because again, you've talked about the parish ministry. The Diocese of Cleveland has posted on their website a couple of pages, which I think are great resources. And one is a list of all of the religious communities that are involved in the diocese. I think there's 12 men and 30 women. Not all have associate programs, but that's a great resource to be able to learn what are some of the different communities that are out there. And they also have a page on other lay associate groups. It's not just the associate groups. There's the Knights of Columbus. There's Christ Child Society. So again, Christy, thank you for promoting all that information. I hope you can continue to do so. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks for being here, Donna.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, the Knights of Columbus and St. Peter Claver, and all of those are really great. The Sisters of Bon Secours are national. So yeah, there's all sorts of organizations that are out there, and there's a book that a magazine that comes out every year, and I'm forgetting the name of it. As soon as I find it, I'll put it in the comments. That comes out with all of the lay associations and the religious orders that are out there. Frequently with the religious orders, there's a lay apostolate that is connected with them. So I'll try and remember that and put that out there. I'm sure somebody can pop that up there before I even remember it. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate your support. So click like and subscribe. Feel free to share this out with others who will find this beneficial in your area, in your circle of friends and ministry, in your parish, diocese, and wherever. Feel free to share. We have no barriers on this, so share it far and wide. Thank you, Donna. We really appreciate you being here today and sharing all about your ministry and the Sisters of Humility of Mary and Blessing House. So thank you so much and have a lovely day. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining today's podcast. Please click the like and subscribe. And if you find this important to the conversations you're having in your local ministry, please share and join the conversation in the comments below. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on the Catholic Leadership Network podcast.